Teachers, do you ever feel like you don't have enough center materials to do your job well? Or maybe you're wondering if what you have is enough. And how do you even know? In this episode, I'll be answering a question from a listener.
Hi, Vanessa. My name is Amy. I'm from New York. And my question is, how do I have enough materials in every center related to the theme? So for my curriculum, I have to follow units of study. And each month we have a new theme. So this month it is water. And I just seem to lack a lot of extra engaging materials in blocks, dramatic play, especially art, science, discovery, math, etc. The school gives us so many manipulatives and toys and things, and I do purchase things off of Amazon or the dollar store. I often print a lot of activities and laminate them, but it just doesn't seem like enough. If you can give me some advice, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great question, Amy. I'm going to break my answer down into 3 parts for you. First, I'm going to start with understanding the difference between basic center materials and those that are added throughout the year. I like to think of those basic center materials that stay out all year as a healthy, well-balanced meal. The things that are added to your centers for specific themes are like the spices that you use to season that healthy meal, things like salt, pepper, and garlic. The trick is to figure out the difference between the healthy meal, the spices, and when to add the spices. This is why I created my Center Essentials Guide. This freebie is going to help you set up successful centers in your own classroom. Each center is listed along with the healthy meal type materials to stock each center. You can use this guide to create a list of things that are missing from your centers that you can submit to your principal, or you can source them on your own if you want to. Good news, I recently added a condensed version of the guide that includes a single page of those basic center materials and a list of things that you can add to your centers throughout the year. So when it comes to adding those spices that I mentioned, those things get sprinkled into centers whenever you introduce a new theme or unit of study. I'm going to use the water study as an example because it's the one that Amy mentioned in her message. Now, the curriculum she uses has about 10 basic centers that they require, and those are blocks, art, dramatic play, toys and games, library, sand and water, discovery, technology, and music and movement. That's not all of them, but that's the basic majority of them. So for a water study, you might add some of the following things to each center. So in your block center, you might add things like toy boats, sea creatures, and maybe some blue felt or fabric for your students to create, the water, right? And the blocks and the people figures and the vehicles, those are things that stay in that center all year long. Now, you might also consider adding some of those can you build it type of resources to your block center. Things that inspire kids to build things like boats or pools, lakes, ponds, oceans, those type of things with the blocks that are already there. For your dramatic play center, for the water theme, you might consider turning it into a camping theme, right? And then you can create like a lake or a pond using a kiddie pool or even just some blue felt, along with some magnetic fishing poles and some magnetic fish. That would be super fun. The table, the chairs, the dolls, and the kitchen furniture, those remain in this center, and they can be turned into the camper, RV, or cabin for this camping scenario. In your toys, games, and puzzles area, you're going to add a puzzle about boats, obviously, a regular puzzle, wooden puzzle, and a floor puzzle if you have them. It depends on the time of the year and the age of your students when it comes to those floor puzzles, but those are 2 great additions. And of course, sand and water, those are going to be perfect for the water study, right? Because you're going to add boats and sea creatures to your water table. And then you can add things like shells and beach buckets and shovels to your sand table. Obviously, in your classroom library, you're going to have all kinds of books about ocean and sea life. Those can be sourced from the library if you don't have any of your own. For your discovery center, you can add an ocean wave discovery bottle, some real shells, a starfish, things like that. And for music and movement, you can add whale sounds or wave sounds. And then for technology, take a virtual field trip to an aquarium, unless you go to a real one, of course, which is even better. And for art, you're going to want to add some tiny shells for gluing and some ocean life cookie cutters maybe, and some blue Play-Doh. Now, finally, I'd like to address the portion of Amy's message where she says, I do purchase things from the dollar store, and I often print and laminate a lot of activities, but it just doesn't seem like enough. Since I don't really have enough context to answer this question succinctly, I'm going to answer it two different ways, two possible scenarios that could be happening here. So the first one is if you feel like you don't have enough because you see other teachers who have a lot more, then to that I say don't compare your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20, right? So after 20 years in the classroom, I had enough materials to fill an entire 2-car garage complete with aisles like a grocery store, okay? That's a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that a lot of stuff makes you a better teacher. I'm saying that I made that choice to buy them because it saved me time, and my time was more important to me than my money. Now, this especially applies to teachers who are new to teaching pre-K or preschool, right? Because this is your first time, you really don't have any specific materials for this age level. Now, don't think you have to do all of this out of your own pocket either. There are ways that you can get funding. So, of course, there are opportunities like grants if you work in a public program like public school or Head Start, then you might qualify for a Donors Choose grant if your district allows you to, or you can get grants for specific things for specific centers, like maybe you want to order a bunch of things for your science center or your writing center. You could write a science grant or a STEM grant, if you will, or a writing grant. Those are all options open to you. Now, the second part of my answer is if you feel like you don't have enough because your kids aren't engaged enough at center time. It's all about what you do with the materials that you do have and the structure, the supportive structure that you're creating for your students during center time that has to do with engagement. And it's really not about the materials that you have unless you truly have nothing, which I have been there and done that before too. And of course, you don't want to forget those spices that you add, because spices are what add the novelty to the center time, right? That's what takes it from just always blocks, people, and vehicles to a whole other level, because now they're exploring new opportunities each time you add these quote unquote spices to your centers for your units of study. It's what keeps the engagement up. Now, it sounds like you're already aware of all the great things available at the dollar store that you can use to enhance your units of study. There are all sorts of little farm and ocean and even wild animal figures that you can sprinkle in for each of those units of study. Okay. I know a lot of you out there are thinking, Vanessa, I can't ask my principal for anything. He or she is just going to shut me down and say, we have no money. That's their mantra, right? We have no money. Well, actually, they're the gatekeepers of the money, right? Our administrators are the gatekeepers of the money. We have to be very skilled at going to the gatekeeper and convincing them to let us through, right? That is our job. And so what I've done here in the Center Essentials Guide is I have added 2 things to help you be more successful at getting your principal or school district to pay for things. Now, that first one is this professionally written note that all you have to do is add your name and your grade level and check off the learning domains of the things you're requesting, right? And then sign it. So that's done for you. You don't have to worry, because I remember being very nervous about approaching my principal about buying things. And I wasn't as smart as I am now, right? I didn't always get a good result. But I know that if I had had time to sit down and write that professional note, that I would have had a better response. The other thing is this order sheet. So it's one thing to approach our principal or administrator and say, I want these things for my classroom, right? We have to do it in a very, very professional manner. We're always rushed because we don't have a lot of time, right? So I believe that if you take the liberty or opportunity, if you will, to actually fill out a materials request form and attach it to your letter, now you can do that electronically or however you prefer to do it, or paper, you're going to have a lot more success. So this materials request form is super helpful because you've basically done the administrator's job for them, right? You didn't just come in and whine or complain or say you didn't have what you needed to do your job. You actually came with a solution. First, you had the professional note that will wow them, right? Because most people just come in and demand things. And then you have everything already listed and ready to go. The only thing they have to do is say yes or no at this point, right? So I've got name, I've got grade level, I've got the reason that you're requesting these materials. These are for centers. You've already told them what centers you're going to be asking for materials for. And now I've actually gone to Lakeshore, which is one of my favorite teacher supply places. And I have listed the 3 things that I am asking for, along with the name of the company, if they're an approved vendor. That's very important because if you're in a public school, the orders have to go through an approved vendor, which is why a lot of schools can't use Amazon. Then you're going to list the title of the item, and then you're going to list the actual item number. Super important, okay? The actual item number. The cost, of course, because that's super important as well. And that's it. Now you have these 2 pieces of paper. Either you can take them as paper and staple them together and put them on your principal's desk, or hand them directly to their hand with a face-to-face eye contact. That's always the most effective. Or you can attach them to an email. It's your choice. But these things are things that I believe will help you achieve your goal. And this is also something many new teachers find way too intimidating to do. But if they can do it through these 2 pieces of paper, that's going to make their dream more achievable, right? So Amy, I hope I answered your question about center materials, and I hope that my answer will help other teachers out there as well, because the struggle really is real, right? And don't forget to download my free Center Essentials Guide so you can grab the 1-page center materials lists for the things that should go in your centers, things that are there all year, and things that we sprinkle in throughout the units of study, as well as the professionally written note to the principal, the order form, and then inside the guide you'll find full color photographs and more information about the different things that are available in each center from my classroom as examples. They're not like by the law or anything like that. Oh, and if you have a burning question, just like Amy, that you would like answered here on the podcast, just look below the video description if you're watching along, and that's the little box below the video. You have to hit the down arrow to see it if you are on mobile. And there'll be a link there to leave a message for me. If you're listening along, go to pre-kpages.com/listen and click on the big orange button there to leave your message. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin. Onward and upward.